Welcome to the show, Victor. I am so excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
I would love if you could give a little bio of who you are and where in the world you are currently joining me from today.
I am currently joining you from the mountains of Lake Tahoe on the Nevada side. It's a lovely snowy day and on the lake. And my name is Victor Sagalovsky, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Lightwater Scientific. And I've been working and researching and studying human health and nutrition for 30 years, I think at this point. So yeah, that I don't. if you ask questions, I'll
No
answer them.
worries. That's not a problem.
I never like give a long paragraph of what I've done, what I've been, my accomplishments. But I have expertise in a number of things, and this has brought me to the point of starting this company a few years ago, Lightwater Scientific. So yeah, it's
Perfect. Like what led you down this path of health and wellness? Have you always been into it? Was your family like really big into it? Or was there a catalyst in your life that led you to really start to dive deep into the health and wellness side of things?
a typical catalyst that everybody, or the most typical catalyst that people have for getting into health and wellness is trying to get better health and wellness for themselves. So when I grew up, I didn't have the health that I wanted, and I wanted to understand why. And then nobody could help me, except myself. So I got into research. But at the same time, I was also fascinated from a very young age and reading stories about people, long-lived people. Right? I've always been an armchair gerontologist, so to say, ever since I was young. I was always interested in the study of the aging process. So this helped to lead me down that path. In my early 20s, I realized that you are what you eat, and that really was just a big shocker, because that really changed my outlook on everything, and really got me to focus deeply into the first the culinary art of nutrition, and then the biochemistry of nutrition, and led me along the path of ceaseless inquiry into what makes us run and what makes us run better.
No, I love that so much. It's funny because, I've had a lot of experts or doctors or just practitioners in this space on this podcast. And I feel like there's a lot of people who were like, I grew up not necessarily in a health and wellness household, but like I knew vegetables and fruit, good for you, sugar and candy, bad for you. But that was kind of like the distinction. There wasn't anything that was really more involved into it. Now we talk about things like different oils that can be really bad for you and how our water can be really toxic. And you go back and you think, well, it's supposed to be like black and white, like fruits and veggies are good, sugar candy bad, but there's so much more involved in it.
Perfection is really, it's in the details. Yeah. You really have to get into the nitty gritty of things. I remember when I was very young, my, how my grandmother, I learned a lot from my grandmother, and she taught me, when you go into a farmer's market or a grocery store, how to select food, so you smell it, you pinch it, you look at it. I really observed. I was great at observation, and just followed what I observed. And then I noticed that other people didn't do that. They took it for granted. So the way I grew up in my family, they weren't terribly like health conscious in terms of diet, but they were very, very specific, and very. There was like a folk wisdom. And so, and then as I grew up, I realized, oh, okay, this is why we drink buttermilk. This is why we do this. So, yeah, I think those early years, made me made that the early years of observing the relationship with food and how it was prepared, and that set a foundation too, I guess. It's really it really. When I was 21, I started the very first organic raw food gourmet restaurant in the United States, and that really started my journey off, because that was I got into studying yoga. At that time I got into raw foodism and living foods, and I started to see how it affected my body, and I started to make adjustments as I went along. And over the time, I learned what works and what doesn't. And then I went in and then I went in to study the biochemistry of that to support my own intuitive and experiential conclusions. And I think now I'm at a really good place of understanding a little bit. You know, the more you learn, the less you know. But I think I have a pretty good handle on my health, at least.
So you started in the restaurant and food industry. What led you to looking at deuterium depleted water and like maybe even just water in general? Why did you go down that path?
When I was 16, a friend gave me a bottle of water. Until that time, I thought you have tap water and you've got salt water and you've got drinking water, and that's all water is the same. And I drank my very first glacial water. I thought, wow, this is very different. What is it about this? So then I started this inquiry and research into why is some water taste this way? Why water is not all water is the same. So that really got me started very early on into asking the right questions about water and understanding our relationship with it. And much later, I had got into what I think like extreme fanaticism in water. You know, I traveled the world looking for sacred springs and hot springs and unknown water sources, and you know, all these things that just I like the challenge of and I like the challenge um, of understanding things I don't know about and trying to and asking questions that there's no answers for. So, you know, there's a famous. Do you know who Victor Schauberger was?
No, I don't.
He's a Austrian naturalist, lived early part or first half of the 20th century, and he's considered the father of modern water science. And he had this great experiment, which just blew me away because I still don't really know the answer to why. But he had this amazing experiment that he did. It was very simple. If you take a liter of water weighs 1 kilogram, right? So if you put yourself on the scale and if you drink a liter of water, the scale should go up. If you're standing on it, it should go up by a kilo, right? He just added a kilo to. So he showed this where he stood on a scale and he drank a liter of tap water, and sure enough, the scale shifted. You know, it went up, and he did the same thing with spring water, and it didn't change. So what happened? It's like magic. It just went poof, you know. So I thought that was very interesting. So I wanted to really understand more. And the more I got into food and nutrition, I started understanding that the diet that I grew up with was the wrong diet for me, and that the diet that most people are on, which is the standard American diet or the food pyramid, the FDA food pyramid, is completely anathema to what really works for the body. So that made me realize that if I were to get answers, I'd have to do this informally. Like there was no where I could go get a formal education in the things that I was interested in, but I could go contact the teachers that I wanted to learn from, and that's what I did. I mean, I have a college degree, but everything I learned that is of utmost importance for life, I learned from. I was very fortunate to have the right teachers, but I sought them out. I know what I wanted, so it was very important for me to understand how things work because things that were not working for me, you know, something's not working for you, you either give up or you keep going. So on the water side, I realized I learned everything you could about the science of water, you know, basic things. Does the pH matter? What should be how should water be filtered? What should be the particulate count or a total dissolved solid? What makes one water taste different than the other? What are some of the more mystical, magical properties of water? Like I just told you with no answer why the person's weight didn't go up when he drank a liter of living spring water. So I really wanted to understand this fully, because we're 98.9% water by molecular weight. We're told we're 75% water, but we're not. We're actually 98.9% water by molecular weight. So we are water beings. So I really wanted to understand this because I felt like in the 90s, I felt like, hey, if we're mostly water, and at that time I didn't know that we were 98.9%. It was like, but still 75%. If the planet's mostly water, if we're mostly water, then this has to have a really important impact on our aging process, the type of water that we drink, and the food that we eat. So that really set me off on trying to understand these things. And then in 2004, I read an article, In Search of the Fountain of Youth, and that article talked about deuterium depletion and the studies that were conducted in the 50s in the former Soviet Union in Siberia. And I looked at the science, I looked at the history. I mean, I looked at everything. I really dove in deep, and I said, this is something profound. This is something that has been overlooked, because this is I'm looking for things that are upstream solutions. I'm looking for root causes of things. I'm like, wow, this might be a root cause. So I really devoted all my time to it because I really wanted to understand if the science was correct, right?
Yeah.
So when we started the company, Lightwater Scientific, we didn't have any deuterium depleted water. We had imported it when we started the company. And sure enough, we believed in the science. We really believed in the science. It made sense. And then sure enough, after a few months, the science proved itself right. So I was very pleased because I took the scientific approach in this. And yeah, we have a problem on our planet. We have too much deuterium in our water. And this is something that's causing us to slow down and age faster. And so if you reduce it a bit, then you have more energy to age slower.
I have a two-part question. And the first part is for anyone who's like, what in the world is deuterium depleted water? Can you explain what that is? And then I'll follow it up with my second question, which is, what is the difference between, like, if someone's like, water is water, like, what is in our tap water that is so, one could argue, toxic to our beings and so anti-aging, and why does it matter that we should not be drinking that tap water?
Let's start with that second part first, because that's a little bit shorter answer than the deuterium one. Tap water, you don't know what's in it, right? Unless you've gotten the report from your municipality, you don't know what's in your tap water. But you do know that it gets processed, and you do know that in most places, and we do know that chlorine gets added, and most places now sodium fluoride as well. So we know we have some contaminants in the water that are natural, and we have some contaminants in the water that are unnatural. So we really should know what's in our water when we drink it, because we've been conditioned to trust out of the tap, but that's not necessarily a good thing. So depending where you live, you should know what's coming out of your tap water. If you're consuming tap water, you should know. Even any bottled water, you should know exactly what the mineral profile is, what else is in it. So with tap water, if you want to be safe, you just put it through a reverse osmosis filtration or distillation system. So then you could start from scratch. Water is very unique. You can devote years or decades to a study and still not understand everything about it. So, but we want a water that's more closer to the water that's inside our cells, the water that our bodies make. Our bodies make our metabolic water that runs our energy production. So, and this is where deuterium completion comes in. So deuterium is a type of hydrogen. It's known as an isotope. So all elements have isotopes, meaning that they're still that element, but because of their neutron count, they vary slightly in composition. So therefore, they're called an isotope. So hydrogen in 1933 was discovered has 3 isotopes. So it has the original one, which makes up most of the hydrogen. 99+% of the hydrogen in the universe is this hydrogen that is known as hydrogen 1. And if you remember back to your early science classes, you'll know that hydrogen is the first element on the periodic table and the most abundant element in the universe, and the thing that runs everything. It runs our bodies, it runs stars, it runs rocket ships. Everything is run hydrogen because it's so simple. It's one proton, one electron. Every other element after that has multiple protons, neutrons, and electrons. So that makes hydrogen very, very small, which is why our bodies and stars love it so much, because it's so easy to work with. So deuterium is a type of hydrogen that adds a neutron. So it doubles the weight, doubles the mass of that hydrogen. And there's a very small amount of this type of hydrogen on the planet. There's a third isotope, which is tritium, but we don't need to talk about it because it occurs so rarely. But this deuterium isotope of hydrogen also binds with oxygen to make water. So you have regular water, and then you have something known as heavy water or semi-heavy water. So in a liter of water, there are 20,000 drops. That's if you want to know how many drops are in a liter, it's 20,000. So out of those 20,000 drops that we consider to be H2O, we have 6 drops that are not H2O. They are HDO or HOD, and that those two hydrogens, out of those two hydrogens, one is replaced by deuterium, or both, in which case it would be D2O or heavy water. So this changes everything. When this changes the water itself. So it looks like water, tastes like water, but it's very different because it has this other version of hydrogen. And oxygen doesn't discriminate. It doesn't know how to select for one versus the other. But everything runs on hydrogen 1 in our bodies. And hydrogen 2 is not compatible with human life. This was discovered shortly after they realized that there was not only one type of hydrogen in the universe, that there was deuterium and tritium as well. So when they discovered it, they synthesized pure heavy water in a lab, something that doesn't occur in nature. But it looks like water and tastes like water. So they wanted to know, is this still water? Because it's still hydrogen, it's just a heavier hydrogen. So is this still water? So they tested it. And between the 3rd and 5th day, the mammal died. So they tested on mice, rats, dogs, and they said, wow, this is not water. This is incompatible with, this is water that'll kill you. It looks and tastes like water. And then it took decades after that to really understand the mechanism and process of how this element, or this isotope of the element of hydrogen affects us, and why it's a poison, why it's a contaminant. Albeit it's natural and was here from the very beginning of the universe. We just have too much of it now. And our bodies have figured, our metabolism does try to filter this out. The water that our bodies make, the metabolic water, is already 60 to 70% reduced in deuterium than the water that most of us drink, or the water that is most of the drinking water on the planet. So this deuterium interferes with our biology. It interferes with our energy production. It interferes with our DNA replication. It interferes with enzyme. It interferes with everything. And the reason it interferes, it's purely a mechanical problem. And that mechanical problem is that it's twice the weight. So if you woke up tomorrow and you wait, and your weight was double than what you are today, it would feel a little weird, and you would have to relearn how to do everything, right? So that's where we're at. And like I said, when I first found out about this, I immediately saw that this was something that should be pursued, because this is an intervention that is far more impactful than anything else you can do. Considering that the water our bodies make is 60 to 70% reduced in deuterium, should give us a slight clue that the water we need to drink should be as low in deuterium as possible. So in certain places on the planet, in fact, water is lower in deuterium than others. So if the average is 150 parts per million for drinking water, the oceans are 155 parts per million. In certain places on the planet, you have anywhere from 89 parts per million all the way up into the 100, all the way up to 150. But in certain places, let's say let's say this original area of research in Siberia, they were drinking water that was 16% reduced. So it was in the lower 130 ppm range. And and then they showed, wow, this is why people have so much more, live so much longer here, why their health is so much better. And these are people that live primarily like Eskimos. So they honed in on why these people lived so long, or why people in many mountainous areas or high or places where the water was lower in deuterium, why they had better health. And sure enough, when you reduce the deuterium in your body, you you have less burden on your mitochondria, on your cellular processes, on everything really. So so at the extreme, if you drink heavy water, you'll die. And the opposite extreme, if you reduce the deuterium from the water, it will extend your life. And this is what was shown over 60 years of research. So I thought that, hey, this is, you know, this is really for somebody like me that's interested in cracking this the code, you know, of aging and longevity. There's you know, you're not gonna get a better you're not gonna get a better nugget than this. So I really dove into the science and dove into the business of the commercial production of this as well, because this is not one of the reasons it was overlooked is because you couldn't make it. You know, you go into the mountains in some remote area, and there you could have slightly deuterium depleted water, but it took many decades to figure out how to make it in the lab, and even more time to figure out how to make it commercially available, to make it at scale. And even then, it's not that we don't produce that much of it. So yeah, this is a new standard in water purity. So the old standard was you reduce the contaminants, like if you've got tap water or heavy water or whatever, hard water, you know, you distilled it or you put it through a filter, and you got rid of the contaminants. Well, now we realize there's a contaminant that is actually a type of water itself. So whereas it's kind of easy, or not, let's say, I wouldn't say easy, but let's say there's a lot less difficulty in removing a contaminant from water that isn't water, like heavy metals and so forth, than removing a type, a version of water that is just one atom or two atoms different, right? It's slightly off. So that's a very difficult process to remove this semi-heavy water or heavy water from regular water. And but when you do it and you drink it, you reduce the body's deuterium level. So in fact, you're giving your body the water that's closer to the water that your body makes and recycles daily.
I want to talk a little bit more about the longevity benefits of deuterium, but before we do, there's so much online right now about different people have an argument, and then somebody else has a different argument for why you should and shouldn't be doing this. There's spring water, there's tap water, there's alkaline water, there's deuterium depleted water. Like there's so much out there that it
But what
almost gets
about, right,
confusing.
it gets confusing, but what I look at is, what is the water? That's all great. You have all these types of, you have all these fads and people that are interested in water. But the question I ask is, which of those waters is the closest to the water that we make ourselves? Because we don't, the water that we drink doesn't make it into our energy producing pathways, into the mitochondria. It's only water that we synthesize ourselves, de novo. That's the profound thing. Like the water that runs our bodies is, we make that from hydrogen and oxygen. We just combine those and we make water. So so the question is, which of these waters is closest or most compatible with the water that our bodies make? Because there's the clue. The water that's going to be the best for you is the kind of water that your body already makes. So there's not too much difference. So when it comes to alkalinity, it's not, there's not much to it, because the blood, you know, our blood exists in a very tight space of pH. Okay, so the body self-regulates. So when you put in alkaline water or acidic water into your body, all bets are off as soon as it enters the gut, right? The body changes it to whatever it needs to. It adjusts the pH, the body adjusts the pH of whatever we put in it. So there's that. Like I said, tap water, you should know what's in your tap water. You should know if it's, you should know how well it's filled. You should know if it has fluoride or chlorine in it. That's not these things are not good for us in a long-term basis. Um, and then so it has to do with the purity of water, right? How our body wants very pure water. So that's the way I looked at it. So what is the water that's closest to the water that's in our bodies, and that's what I want to drink. And certain spring waters are very good. They're magical. You know, we can talk for hours about the different characteristics and qualities of spring water and what make them unique. But water is unique in that it holds memory. So whatever it comes in contact with, it really holds that vibration and passes that on to you. It's a more esoteric nature and study of water, but you're never certain that what you're getting in the bottle is what came out of the spring. It depends how it was processed, because water has a certain flow it likes to go into. It has a certain way that it moves through space and time, and then when you change that, they're starting to realize that water doesn't like hard angles. It doesn't like these 90-degree turns. It likes everything like a curve and a spiral. So now when they've started implementing this in water production facilities, they find that they have less bacterial problems because the water is flowing like it was designed to. So there's so much that there is to know about water, and it's not something that we're taught in school. So, it should be, because this is the make it or break it part of health right there, is the type of water that we put in our bodies.
No, it makes absolute sense. I mean, we drink water, we wash our vegetables and fruits in water, we shower or bathe in water, and it seems like there's so many people out there that have all these almost like contradicting things to say. Like, even off the top of my head, there were two people that I kind of admire in the wellness space. One was talking about having high um dissolved mineral content in the water, and then another person was like, no, 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 it should be as low as possible. And it's like, you two are in the wellness space and both are saying completely opposite things. Like, how is the average Joe supposed to know what to do?
It's very difficult. If you a little, as they say, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So, but I can solve that riddle for you
Yeah, please
and the
do.
people. We do want a water that has low total dissolved solids, generally, right? You don't. We get our minerals from food. A low total dissolved solid makes water fresher, lighter tasting, but it also affects the taste, and the mineral profile affects the taste of water. So this is why some spring waters taste better than others. It's just a matter of the mineral profile. So a good water is like 15 or less parts per million of total dissolved solids, but you don't know what those dissolved solids are. It could even be a good water all the way up to in the couple hundred ppm. It just depends what those minerals are. Now, the ratios and profile that they have. Now, the person that you mentioned, talking about wanting a water that has a very high mineral content, there is value in that if those minerals are in a bicarbonate form. So we are very, like, our bodies are magnesium hungry. We just love magnesium. We burn it constantly. So if you get a good water that has a high magnesium bicarbonate amount, then that becomes bioavailable. And certain natural waters have a high magnesium and potassium bicarbonate. So if it's attached to that carbon, it's organic. As we know, if something's attached to a carbon, it's a mineral. If it's not, it's an element. So that if it's in a bicarbonate form, then it's bioavailable. So any other way, you're not going to absorb those elements, because plants take up elements and they convert them to minerals, and we eat the plants or animals, and that's how we don't get our minerals from dirt. So certain springs around the world have a high amount of bicarbonate in there, and that's beneficial. especially if sometimes the taste is a little not quite there because it's a water that it's a lot more minerals in it, so it's not going to have that same clean taste. But that's that's the benefit you're getting there is not from the water. It's whatever mineral is bioavailable. But if you have high TDS in the water and those minerals are not bioavailable, then it's not good for you at all. Our bodies want everything clean. And our bodies just want the building blocks of things, right? Our body will convert it, change everything we put in into what it needs. It's usually molecularly, it's very different from what we put in our body. So if we give it the building blocks, then it'll be okay. And as a general rule, low total dissolved solid is ideal for daily drinking water. And if you have these waters that have high particulate count, if they're in a bicarbonate form, then it becomes a therapeutic water. So
Okay,
that's the
that's fair.
okay.
That makes and I will say the guy or the person who said the high mineral count did say for the purposes of like medicinal almost water, it can become medicinal at that point. So I should have clarified that, but that makes sense.
For the specifically for the magnesium, we're all deficient in magnesium because our modern lives have a bit of stress built in, so we require a lot of magnesium, and we're getting less and less of it in our food, and anywhere you can get a bioavailable form of magnesium, and in this case, some spring waters have this, some mineral spring waters have this. It's very beneficial as a therapeutic.
Perfect. I would love to talk about the longevity benefits of deuterium depleted water. I think when we hear the longevity part, a lot of us just assume, oh, you live a long life and hopefully it's disease free. Can you get even a little bit more micro? Like if someone starts to consume deuterium depleted water, what are some micro benefits and changes they'll see in their body? And then what are some of the macro benefits that they'll see?
I look at all this as an energy problem. When you're young, you have more energy than when you're old. We can agree on that. And there's a mechanism behind this. It's because as we age, we lose our ability to produce energy in the mitochondria. We lose that mitochondria, and we lose that mitochondria because of wear and tear, and then you can go down even further and look at where this wear and tear comes from. And a lot of this wear and tear comes from deuterium. So in our energy production pathways, deuterium, anytime it takes a position that's reserved for a hydrogen, or the protium as it's known, or let's just call it hydrogen 1 and hydrogen 2. Hydrogen 1 is protium, hydrogen 2 is deuterium. Hydrogen 1 is all the hydrogen in the universe, and hydrogen 2 is this small amount of deuterium that's around. So when a deuterium takes the place of a hydrogen, then it slows things down. So it slows things down to the point where eventually they don't run anymore. So for example, when you're 15 years old, a cell may have 30,000 mitochondria. That same cell that was replicating over decades of time may have 500 mitochondria or less. So you see that there's just this diminishment of energy over time, which is mechanical. If you don't have a car to get somewhere, you're going to have to walk, and that's going to take a lot longer, and you might not get there, right? So we're just putting the wrong fuel in our bodies constantly, even though it's very, very little, but it's cumulative over time. So if you reduce the amount of deuterium that you put in your body, you get a net energy benefit over time. So as you age, you have a conservation of more energy. And so that translates to longevity. That translates to functional health. That translates to health span. And it also translates to prevention of disease, because disease happens when we don't have the energy to fight it. You know, the body's a self-healing organism, but it needs fuel. It needs energy. So energy is the name of the game. So if you want to preserve the energy that you have when you're young, then you will do the things that you need to do to keep any damage from happening to those centers, to those nano-confined spaces in the mitochondria that produce energy, that produce the energy that we need on a day. I'm not talking about like energy you drink coffee and you feel wired. I'm talking about the energy that is needed to sustain life, right? The energy that we take for granted. The energy that just produced 30 million cells in my body in the last 10 seconds, right? That's the energy I'm talking about. The energy to replicate, the energy to repair. That is kind of invisible process to us, but we notice when we get ill. So this is just a way to strengthen ourselves. It's just a way to what you do is you look at how the body works and you go, what's hurting it? What's causing this diminishment of your capacity? Because everything we're beings that are constantly everything is constantly replicating, right? The old cells die, the new cells created, and how perfect that replication is determines your state of health. If you don't have any toner in your Xerox machine and you try to make a copy of something, and it comes out without some of the colors that are in that are in their original document, you've just lost something. And if you continue to do that, copy that one, a copy of a copy of a copy, you'll see that it changes. The image changes over time. So it's really all about how exact is that replication happening, how efficient is that replication, and how optimal is your body tuned to allow your cells and your DNA to replicate in such a way that there's less mutation, because this mutation is what causes aging. And there's a phenomenon that exists that most everybody I notice is suffering from, and this is really the beginningness of disease. It's inflammation, right? And where does inflammation come from? And it's inflammation. Well, it comes from not giving your body what it needs, or it comes from your body trying to repair. Right? Inflammation is also a state of repair. So we want to lessen the inflammation. The less inflammation we have, the healthier we are, and the more energy we have, the more ability we have to replicate. More energy that our cells can replicate properly when they have the energy needed. We're self-healing organisms. Our body is incredibly intelligent. All it needs is the energy. Right? You can have a beautiful car, but if you don't have any fuel in it, it's just going to sit there and look pretty. It's not going to do you any bit of. It's not going to give you any function. You're not going to get any use out of it, except just as a piece of art. So that's basically a simplified explanation of why this is important.
If someone is like, I know a reverse osmosis system would be incredible to have in my house, I do not have the funds to be doing this.
You can get a reverse osmosis system for like $400.
If someone's even like, hey, look, like I'm saving my pennies to be doing this, is there anything like water-wise that they could be doing that would help be taking out some of these heavy metals? Or even on the flip side, is it like tap water we know is really high in deuterium? Yes, in deuterium. So let's
it's two separate
okay.
conversations, because one conversation is about water, one conversation is deuterium. Deuterium is in the water conversation because we are water. So when we reduce our deuterium, well, by drinking deuterium depleted water, you decrease the deuterium in your body, right? The deuterium depleted water is a tool for decreasing deuterium in your body. On the other hand, the water, let's say you were talking about reverse osmosis and what you can do to help with getting clean water, is the first thing everybody should have. Let's say, okay, so we'll compartmentalize that and say, okay, this is separate from the deuterium conversation. This is just a water conversation. So in the water conversation, I would say, look, spend $10, go on eBay, spend $10 on a TDS meter. So you know at least what the total dissolved solid count of your water is. That's the first thing. And if you see that it comes out very high, then you'll know that this is something you need to act on right away. But the reason we use reverse osmosis filtration or distillation is because there are things in water, in tap water, that a regular carbon filter can't remove. Right? There's traces of all kinds of things, all the way up to man-made pharmaceuticals that could be in the water if our water is recycled. I mean, they discover all the time that municipal water is full of this stuff. So bacteria, which is also bacteria, which is lessened by the chlorine that they put in the water. So you just have to be a little intelligent at this and approach it in a way where you can be assured that you're putting clean water in your body. There's just levels of water purity, and just know that your body wants very pure water. The question is, what can you do to give your body pure water? Well, like the first thing, you should know what you won't know what the particulates are, but at least you'll know if they're high or low. $10 for a TDS meter, everybody should have it, especially when they travel. I always say, okay, if I'm going to drink this water, I want to know what total dissolved solids are in there, and I also kind of want to know the pH as well. But more importantly, I want to know what the total dissolved solids are. The pH will give me a clue as to what those minerals may be. So reverse osmosis, what I have to say about this is, if you do get a reverse osmosis, you should get a reverse osmosis that is tankless, because 30 years of my colleagues, my partner's research has shown that there's incredible bacteria buildup in these reverse osmosis tanks. So the answer to that is a tankless system, and they're not that expensive. You can get one for $400 or less. So and then you're at least assured that you're starting with clean water, right? You can do all kinds of other things to that water after it. You could add minerals, you can vortex it, you can spin it with magnets, you can do all kinds of fun stuff. But first and foremost, get rid of what's in there that you don't know. You know, it's a liability when you don't know what you're putting in your body. So it just depends where you live. You know, most people that are on a well, they'll notice that their water is kind of is hard. You know, it has too many minerals in it. So they have to do something about that, because this is not water that we're meant to drink. I mean, if you think about it, the water that comes down as rain, that's distilled water, and that's the water that feeds our plants. You know, we like things simple. We don't like things too heavy or too complicated. So just apply that philosophy in how you in everything in life, you know. So especially the quality and purity of your water. So what people need to do is get a TDS meter. That will convince them that most of the times that will convince them that they need to invest in reverse osmosis. It'll make that a priority, because they'll understand that they're putting excess mineral or element in their body that and they don't know what it is. So clean your water, you know. And this is why certain springs are more renowned than others. Certain springs have that perfect profile of total dissolved solids and taste, and people notice it, and that's why they choose A over B, you know, as a taste test. So that's the purity conversation. And then the next level of purity is to reduce that deuterium in the water, or that water molecule known as semi-heavy water or heavy water, because that's incompatible with our biology. So it's just different standards it's a different standards in our understanding of the type of water that's most compatible with our biology.
I know you're very into longevity, and one of the things you do is the deuterium depleted water. Is there anything else that you've come across in your life or your research that has led you to think, hey, if we do these 5 things, that will increase our likelihood of living a long disease-free life?
Yeah, and look, we don't know how long we'll live. We just don't want diminished capacity. If we're Wouldn't it be nice if when you're 70 that you feel and function like you did when you were 50 years younger? That's what we want. We just want to be able to enjoy youth for as long as we can. And so, yeah, what 5 things? Yeah, I learned there's a lot of cool interventions that you can do. And let's see, what can we what kind of nugget can we give here? Um, when you look at the nutritional requirements of the body, certain things are essential, like essential fatty acids, essential amino acids. They call them essential because the body can't make it. There's so many things that our body can just synthesize from the building blocks that you give it. So the things that your body cannot make, that it requires daily, are really the things, that's the primary focus, to make sure that you're getting the right type, or that you're not deficient in the very essential things. Because if you're not deficient in the essential things, then your body will be able to make everything else. So, and the supplements are really big, because most supplements are not essential. They're just something you take because your body isn't making it when it should, right? Our livers are a pharmacy. It's like so most livers are like a pharmacy that's been looted. There's nothing left on the shelf, and we don't want that. We want to be able to make all the chemicals that our body needs for life. So there's first and foremost, if you look at the biochemistry of the body, you see that we run much better when we switch our metabolism to fat, or a ketogenic diet, or a keto adapted diet, or keto friendly. If you look at the science, shows that you produce 3 to 4 times more energy from fat than you do from sugar. And that sugar actually has a negative effect over time. So I just looked at what the body, what works, what's the most compatible with the body. So a ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, or fasting in general, right? We have to give the body a break. If you deplete the stock of the liver, and you keep doing it, then eventually you got nothing left. So you have to give yourself a holiday now and then from eating all the time. So really have to understand that we eat more. We generally, as a species, at this point in time, we eat more than we need. We drink more than we need. We even overbreathe, right? We overbreathe, we overthink, we overeat. So the simplest advice is less is more, because we put a lot more in our body than the body actually requires, which makes it less efficient, because the body likes efficiency. And the way we evolved was, fasting was very much a part of our daily lifestyle. So you'll notice people that can't lose weight, for example, they go for decades with excess baggage, and when they go on a fasting regimen or intermittent fasting regimen, after a few months it's all gone, right? The body just burns it off. So the most intelligent thing is to listen to the innate intelligence of the body. So, and as far as supplements, yeah, there's a number of supplements that are quite good. I prefer things from food first and foremost. So there's a number of things, but the key is that you are well mineralized. So we evolved as all life started in the ocean, right? So we have an ocean within us. So we have that periodic table of elements within us, and it's important to keep that healthy. So we need proper mineralization. We're low on macro minerals like magnesium. That's almost a constant. Everybody's almost too high in calcium because of the ratio of the diet that we eat. And I would just say, look, just just learn what is more compatible with your body from a dietary standpoint, because it's not starches, it's not sugars. These are great, but we did them very sporadically. If you follow the seasons, you're not going to find bananas in winter, and yet people are still eating them. So be a little more intelligent with how you fit in to nature. You're not outside of it, you're part of it. We're part of nature. So act accordingly. Most people get sick when the seasons change, because everything is a cycle. So you have to adapt to it as you go along, right? So in the summer we have an abundance of fruits. Okay, so we consume those, and then in the winter we don't have that. So we have to look at how nature operates, and then you'll be very healthy. Another thing is we eat foods that come from all over the world, and that confuses our biology actually. Like if you're eating something that is from 6,000 miles away, it's not from your local environment. That's very confusing to the innate intelligence of the body, and it has to deal with it. It takes energy to deal with that and process it. So I would say simple is the way to go. Don't overcomplicate these things. Most people actually hurt themselves more when they introduce all this supplementation into their life. So if you're going to supplement, you just really should know what you're doing. And minerals are important. The mineral ratios in your body are important. Essential amino acids, make sure that you get all of them. Essential fatty acids, make sure you focus on the things that are essential first. And if you focus on the essential things, your body will make up the difference by synthesizing whatever you need internally. That said, if you're dealing with some kind of illness or health challenge, or looking for some improvement in some area, whether it's cognitively or maybe for athletic performance, and yeah, there's a certain intelligent approach to what you would supplement, meaning add to the already diet that you're on. So sorry I didn't get into like specific products, but I just didn't want to at this time.
That's okay. I would love, you had just, before I sent everybody to check out you and your company, Light Water Scientific, you had mentioned minerals, adding minerals to your water. Is that even like, do you suggest people take like pink Himalayan salt and add it? I want to be very clear, we're not adding table salt. People have asked me if it's table salt they should be adding to their water. Don't do that. But even like, is that like, that at least is helpful and it's starting the ball rolling?
Yeah. So let's have a little discussion about salt, all right, which is essential for the body, sodium chloride. Uh, Table salt is bad because it's stripped. It's just pure sodium chloride. You don't find pure sodium chloride in nature. It's always complexed with other minerals. So it's not only table salt stripped, it also has things added which are not natural. So uh, the best salt out there is the salt that's still a little wet. It's because some of these minerals need to have water attached to them for them to be bioavailable. So I was one of the very first importers of Himalayan salt into this country, and then I stopped doing it because I realized it's not the ideal salt for us. So the ideal salt for us would be more like a Celtic sea salt, because it still has a little bit of water in it, so it's wet. So that and it's got a mineral profile that's closer, more compatible with what the earth is like now versus this pink salt. By the way, there's no salt in the Himalayas. That's not the salt is from the Salt Range Mountains in Pakistan. So it's like saying you're from LA when you're really from Denver. But anyway, that's all marketing. So Himalayan is not ideal, not terrible, better than table salt, but ideal would be a Celtic sea salt, and on top of that would be better, even better still, would be the mineral supplement that we sell, Kentone marine plasma. Some call it ketone, but the French pronunciation is Kentone, and that was a gentleman's last name, René Kentone, and he discovered that he said that was his quote that I told you. In order for life that started out in the ocean to exist on land, it had to bring the ocean with it. So this particular type of marine plasma is is the best because it's the closest thing in mineral profile to our blood. In fact, you can transfuse your blood. You can, if you need a blood transfusion, you could use this marine plasma instead, and your body would rebuild the blood because it's the closest thing there is to blood. So yeah, that's why we sell it, because it's a really a upstream intervention for superior health. You know, we people that are not coastal, that live like where I'm living, you know, in the mountains, we're chronically in need of mineralization. I mean, we humans evolved. You know, there's the water ape theory, right? That our brains evolved when we had exposure to fish oils and omega-3s and DHA and GLA, which you don't find in, you know, you find that in fish, you find that in seafood. And so, and it's essential. Our brains need it. Now, our brains can make some of this from other oils, but when you lose that ability to make it, then you're deficient, and your cognitive function suffers, and you lose that neuroplasticity. So a great way to ensure that you are replete is ocean minerals. So yeah, not table salt, Himalayan not ideal, Celtic sea salt the best, and if you want something a little better, you go for the Quinto marine plasma, which comes in these it comes in little sachets, or it comes in glass vials. And this is a product that's been around for 120 years, and it was actually in the European pharmacopoeia as a medicine for a very long time. Because this was prescribed for people for all kinds of things. There's books written about its use. So salt is indispensable. It's super important for us. So what I recommend is you do 10 milliliter vial, 1 to 2 10 milliliter vials of ketone, isotonic or hypertonic per day, and that will ensure that you have the full mineralization. If you look at it very simply, your body conducts energy, right? So the more energy conducting minerals that you have in your body, the more energy your body will conduct. And if those minerals are missing, then your body will not be able to conduct that energy properly or efficiently. So absolutely, people that live coastally, people that get in the ocean every day, like surfers, they're very healthy, usually. You could look at their skin, look at their bodies. It's because they're getting that, they're constantly putting back in those minerals that we lose all the time, that are required. So the right salt is another make it or break it. It's another thing we take for granted, you know. So so be careful. Like when you go to restaurants, be careful, because you don't know what salt they're using. And if they're using table salt, what'll happen is because that salt molecule is stripped of all its chaperones, of all its mineral colloid chaperones, what does your body do? It tries to make up the balance, right? And then people get all kinds of problems from that, from edema and other things. Your body is going to try to compensate for what's missing, but there's going to be a price to pay later. So
yes. Absolutely. If people want to check out Lightwater Scientific online, maybe they love the idea of these minerals, and maybe they just want to learn a little bit more about, deuterium depleted water and the benefits of it, where can everybody go and find you? Where can they buy your products? Where can they check you out online?
Drinklightwater.com. Lightwater is spelled Litewater. So it's drinklightwater.com. And I recommend everybody download the Deuterium Depletion Guide. It's a quick read, but it will prime you an understanding of what this is, and some of the science behind it, and the protocol and the use of it, and what you can expect. So yeah, definitely get that free guide to make an informed decision on what you want to do with your life.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This has been such a knowledgeable conversation. You gave up so much good information. I feel like I learned so much more about water. Is there, before I end the conversation, is there a book, podcast, or resource that has brought you incredible value that you want to leave with the audience?
Hmm. You know, I've been getting into the work of this gentleman by the name of Morley Robbins, and he's cracking the code on iron and copper, the relationship of iron and copper in the body, because it's another one of these things that we got wrong, and once you get something wrong, it's very hard to walk it back. Yeah. So, but he's really cracked the code. So I would look into his podcast if you have any kind of issues with iron or copper metabolism, and most of us do actually. So, and and when you listen to this guy, he breaks it down really well, like where everybody can understand, and it's really like myself that wants to understand the underlying mechanisms of health and aging. This is a complete. He's talking about something that is a missing piece. It's an incredible discovery that he made about the how we got it all wrong, how we got iron and copper all wrong for our bodies, and he's got, I think, dozens of podcasts out there, and start with that. It'll be so much benefit, because a lot of times people get diagnosed with anemia or having not enough copper, and it's actually the opposite. The copper is locked in the tissues and you're overloaded. So sorry, not the copper, the iron. The iron is locked in the tissues and you're overloaded. So if you're interested in unraveling some of these mysteries of our biology and how things really work, I recommend the work of Morley Robbins.
Thank you so much for that. I will definitely have to check that out. I will make sure all the links are in the show notes. So if people want to connect directly with you, they can do so through there. Thank you so much for this conversation, Victor.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.